Hello YouTube, my name is Daniel, and welcome to another edition of Education 180. You may be wondering why I'm sitting here making this YouTube video for you. Well, here's the deal. Today, I'll be talking about the second section in the Analytical Reasoning module on the Constraint Object. You may be wondering what the Constraint Object is. In diagramming a question, very often you will find that one object is the most restricted or constrained. This constraint object is often the best choice as an answer when a question asks you to plug in several answer choices to your diagram in order to find the correct answer. You should train your mind to develop a mental model of how the conditions relate to one another before attempting to solve the questions. This allows you to look to the most appropriate conditions first for a solution to a question, thereby saving ever so valuable time. Please take a moment to read through Constraint Object Question 1. Press pause, and when you are ready to continue, press play. We will continue. Let's read through the question together. A baseball coach must set the batting order for her 9 players, D, E, F, G, H, J, K, L, and M. The batting order must meet the following conditions. F must always bat in the first position, and J must always bat in the second position. D, G, and K, no matter what their order relative to each other, cannot form a sequence of 3 consecutive batters. E, H, and M, no matter what their order relative to each other, cannot form a sequence of 3 consecutive batters. D cannot bat immediately before or immediately after H. D cannot bat in either the 3rd or 8th position in the batting order. E must bat after K, and L must always bat in the last position. When you are first starting out in practicing analytical reasoning questions, you may find it helpful to have pictures to represent the letters for the conditions. Let's work through each of the conditions together. So for the first condition, F must always bat in the first position, and J must always bat in the second position. So we know for the duration of the diagram that F will be constrained in the first position and J will be constrained in the second position. They will not move during the entire question. Let's look at condition 2. D, G, and K, no matter what their order relative to each other, cannot form a sequence of 3 consecutive batters. So here's condition 2 represented with pictures. I have the can't equal sign. And that just means that D, K, and G can't form a consecutive run. They can't follow one after another. They have to be separated. D and K could be together, D and G could be together, but all 3 can't form a consecutive series. Let's take a look at the third condition. E, H, and M, no matter what their order relative to each other, cannot form a sequence of 3 consecutive batters. So here's condition 3. Again, we have the can't equal sign, and just as in condition 2, E, H, and M can't form a consecutive series of 3 batters, one after the other. They have to be separated. Let's take a look at condition 4. D cannot bat immediately before or immediately after H. So, again, we have the can't equal sign. This is condition 4. D can't come before, immediately before, or it can't come immediately after H. 5. D cannot bat in either the 3rd or 8th position in the batting order. So, for the lines down here, just so I remember not to put D in the 3rd position, I have the can't equal sign right here. can equal D in the 3rd position and can't equal D in the 8th position, so I know not to put D there. 6th position, E must bat after K. So that means that E will come sometime after K. It doesn't necessarily need to come immediately after. K will appear first, and then sometime after K we'll see E. And 7th and last condition, L must always bat in the last position. So L is also a constrained object with J and F. So L, for the entire duration of the question, will always be in the 9th position. It will not move. And when you go ahead and write the LSAT and you become more practiced, it's a good idea, for efficiency's sake, to represent each of the conditions in symbol form or with letters. So each of the conditions are represented. For E comes after K. Some people write it this way. It's a good idea. It's just to show that E doesn't come immediately after K necessarily, but sometime after K. And again, for constrained objects, so you're not tempted to move them, it's a good idea to draw a box around them, so you don't start playing with those letters. Alright, let's try the first question. Please take a moment to read through Constraint Object Question 1. Press pause, and when you are ready to continue, press play. Let's read through the following question together. If H bats in the 5th position, which of the following must be true? So it's a good idea to underline must be truth, so that you understand exactly what we're looking for. So here, when they say must be true, it means that's the only way, there's no alternative. So we'll be always looking for alternative solutions to what the question asks for. So let's take a look at A. So A says E, that's in the 6th position. So let's try E. First off, let's draw a box around A, because we know it's constrained. It's in the 5th position for this question. What happens if we put E in the 6th position to start off with? So what else do we have? G, K, D, M. You know that K has to come sometime before E. We can try G over here. D and M. First off, let's do a quick check to see if this works. G, D, and K are separated. E, H are separated. D is not in 3rd or 8th position. E comes after K, and L equals 9. Okay, so that works, but does this have to be true? Let's try and move E to see if it'll fit anywhere else. So what would happen if we were to swap places with D? Would that still work? D wouldn't work, because then D would be beside H. Let's see if we can find anything else. What would happen if we were to bring G over here, put K here, put E here, and put G here? Would this still work? Let's take a look at the conditions. So we have D, G, and K separated. We have E, H, and M separated. D and H are separated. D is not in 3rd or 8th. K comes before E, and L comes in 9th position. So we know that we can get rid of A, because this doesn't have to be true. So let's clear off the board. Let's bring down the letters that aren't constrained. And let's try with K. Does K have to be in the 3rd position? Well, it was just in the 3rd position. What would happen if we were to put it in another position? Well, we know that it has to come before E. Or if we were to swap E and G, would that still work? So let's check the conditions. And let's try, let's see if this works still. So that K is not in the 3rd position. So for the first, we can ignore this one because these are constraints, so we're not moving them anyways. So let's try D, G, and K are separated. E, H, and M are separated. D and H are separated. D is not in 3rd or 8th position. K comes before E, and L comes in the 9th position. So we can get rid of this letter B, because K also works in the 4th position. C is M bats in the 8th position. Does that have to be the case? What if we were to swap E and M? Let us clear out the board here. So we'll just do a quick swap of E and M. Does this still work? So we have D, G, and K separated. E, H, and M separated. D and H are separated. D doesn't come in the 3rd position or at the 8th position. K comes before E, and L equals 9. So we can get rid of C. It doesn't have to be. D bats in the 7th position. Now so far D has stayed in the 7th position, but what would happen if we were to move it? Let's clear off these check marks here. Now in looking, we know that D can't come in the 3rd position. D can't come in the 8th position. And D is already in the 7th position. So really, we know that H is constrained in the 5th position. Based on the question up here, H bats in the 5th position. So all that's left is the 4th and 6th position. So what would happen if we put D in the 6th position? If we were to do that, then it would break condition 4. So we can't do that, so we need to replace D back in its spot. Well, if we were to put D in the 4th place, well, again, it breaks condition 4 because D and H are beside each other. So we know that D has to be in the 7th position. There's nothing else that we can do. We've eliminated all the possibilities. So D is the correct response. So let's put him back. Just like that. And just for argument's sake, let's try E. G bats in the 6th position. Well, we can just take a quick look, and right here it's in the 3rd position, and the chart works, so we can get rid of E. And that's question 1. And just to recap, with H being placed in the 5th position, it forces D to go into the 7th position, as D cannot occupy the places 4 and 6 besides H, nor can it occupy 1, 2, 3, 8, or 9. 7th is the only spot left. D is the correct response. Please take a moment to read through Constraint Object question 2. Press pause, and when you are ready to continue, press play. We will continue. Let's read the following question together. Number 2 reads, if G bats in the 3rd position and K bats in the 7th position, which one of the following must be true? So they have to be true. There's no other alternative according to the question. So let's put our letters in the right spots. G is in the 3rd position. What else we have? K's in the 7th position. And these letters are constrained. We're not going to move them throughout the entire question. And let's try each of the questions one by one. Let's start with A, which is right here. D bats immediately before M. Well, let's try it. As the question states, D, M. We know that K is constrained here, so E is also constrained in this position. It would have to be there. There's no other place for it because E has to come after K, and L is constrained here, as well as F and J. So really there are only three places that we have room to play with. D bats immediately before M. Well, the first question asks is, does that have to bat before M? What if we were to swap places with the H? I see that it doesn't have to. And one other thing you notice, if H were to swap places with M, we would break condition 4. And likewise, if we were to do the reverse, if we were to swap D with M, we'd again break condition 4 because H and D are beside each other. So we can also determine the hidden condition that M has to be in the middle. We can't move that one. So really all we have to play with are H and D. So D bats immediately before M. No, as we saw right here, it can come after M, so we can get rid of A. M bats in the fifth position. Yes. We determine that this is a constrained object. In the 5th position. So this is our correct answer. But just for argument's sake, let's take a look at the other ones. D bats in the 6th position. No, we can swap it back to 4th position, and H can go over here, and that would still work. So we can get rid of C. D, H bats immediately after G. No, H can come over here, and it would come immediately after M. So we can get rid of D, and E says K bats immediately after D. Well, no, it can also bat after K, so we can get rid of E. So B was the correct response. So just a quick recap, K and E are both constrained in the 7th and 8th positions. G is in the 3rd position. That only leaves 4, 5, and 6 for D, M, and H. Since D, H cannot be beside each other, M has to separate the two. That constrains M to position 5, and B is the correct answer. Please take a moment to read through Constraint Object Question 3. Press pause, and when you are ready to continue, press play. Let's read the following question together. If E bats 5th and H bats 6th, then which of the following must be true? In other words, there's no other alternative. So first off, let's place our variables in the appropriate spots. So E's in the 5th position, H is in the 6th position. And we're going to put boxes around our constrained variables so we're not tempted to move them. What else do we have? So let's take a look at A. G bats in the 7th position. So that would mean G would come over here. What else do we have? D is constrained to the 4th position because 3rd and 8th it can't go into, so let's put D in the 4th. That would mean that K is constrained to the 3rd position because it has to come before E, and we only have one letter F left, so it's M. It goes in the 8th position. So G is constrained here, D is constrained here, K is constrained here, and if all the other letters are constrained, then M is also constrained. That's the only setup that we have. If we move any of the letters, it will break one of the conditions. But before we do that, let's just make sure the conditions are met. So G, D, G, K are separated. Let's erase this arrow. G, D, and K are separated. E, H, and M are separated. D and H are separated. D is not in 3 or 8. K comes before E, and L is in 9th position. So A is the correct answer. Because we cannot move a single letter. Every single letter is constrained. So we can quickly look at the other ones. G bats in the 3rd position. Well, no, G is in the 8th position. So B is incorrect. K bats in the 4th position. Well, no, we have K in the constrained in the 3rd position right here. So C is eliminated. D, M bats in the 3rd position. That's not correct. We have K in the 3rd position, and E, D bats in the 5th position. Well, if you read the question up top, that's not even possible because it says E bats 5th. So sometimes LSAT writers are just checking to see if you're awake and that you're reading the question properly. So, just to recap quickly, because E, H are 5th and 6th, D is constrained to the 4th position, which would push K to the 3rd position, and M to 8th position because of the condition E, H, M. Therefore, G has only position 7 left. A is the correct response. Please take a moment to read through Constraint Object question 4. Press pause, and when you are ready to continue, press play. We will continue. Let's read the following question together. If G bats in the 5th position, any one of the following could bat in the 6th position, except. So this is slightly different nuance from must. This is they could bat. They don't have to, but they could. So let's put G in its 5th position. And this will be our constraint object. We won't be moving it for the remainder of the question. So let's take a look at it one by one. Let's try D in the 6th position. So D comes there. And really it's just a matter of trying different letters. Let's try K over here. Let's try E over here. And we have M and H left. So let's see if this breaks any of the conditions. So the first condition is D, G, and K are separated. Yep. E, H, and M are separated. Yes, they are. D is not next to H, right? They're separated by M. D is not in the 3rd or 8th position. E comes after K, and L is 9. So A can be eliminated because D could be in the 6th position right here. Okay, so let's clear the board and try again. This time they're asking if E could be in the 6th position. So let's give it a try. So E is 6. So it's just a matter of putting the letters in places and seeing if they work. E, H, M can't go together. So let's try separating it. And let's see if this arrangement works. So we have D, G, and K separated. So E is constrained for this one. We have D, G, and K. So that condition works. E, H, and M. So that condition works. D is not next to H, so that condition works. D is not in the 3rd or 8th position. E comes after K, and L is 9. So we can get rid of B because E could work in the 6th position. Just clear the board. So G is still constrained. Let's get rid of these other letters. Let's erase this final blue mark. Let's try C. H in the 6th position. So let's put H here. And again, it's just a matter of arranging the letters so that they work. Let's try K here. Let's try E here. And let's try D here and M here. So let's quickly look through the conditions to make sure they work. We have D, G, and K separated, so that works. E, H, and M separated. This condition right here is currently broken. So let's see if we can find another alternative. What about if we switch M and H? Will that still work? So D, G, and K are still separated. E, H, and M are still separated. Now D and H are, oh no, D is still by H, so that doesn't work. So let's try, what would happen if we put H where E is? Oh, but E is supposed to be in the 6th position, so that's part of the trouble. We need to put a box over the H so we don't get confused. So let's try it again. We need to find another position for D. So what happens if we put D where the E is? Let's try that one. This should work. Oh, it breaks condition 1, G, D, K. There's really only one last thing we can try. We can try swapping the M and the K. This is our final shot. Let's see if this works. So, G, D, and K are separated. E, H, and M are separated. D and H are separated. D is not in 3rd or 8th position. Uh-oh, but the K is coming after the E. What if we were to swap these back? So the D, K, and H are separated. E, H, and M are separated. D and H are separated. D is not in the 3rd or 8th position. E now comes after the K, and L's in the 9th position. That was a trickier one, but we got it, and C works. D, M, let's see if it works in the 6th position. It's sometimes good to see a question being worked out live because it gives you the thought processes on how to work through it. So M is in the 6th position, so this will be our constrained object, and we have to see if this could work. So D can only be in 4 or 7. Let's try it right here in 4. K could come here. Let's try E here and H here. Now let's see if this one will work. G, D, K need to be separated. So let's try swapping E and D. Now let's try. So we have D, G, and K. Those are separated. E, H, and M are separated. Uh-oh, D and H are together, so we have to come up with a solution and how we can separate those guys. The other option is we can swap out H and E. Let's see if this works. Okay, so let's start with the conditions again. So D, G, and K are separated. E, H, and M are separated. D and H are separated. D is not in the 3rd or 8th position. E comes after K, and L comes after L comes in the 9th position. So we can eliminate D. So chances are E is the correct answer, but just for argument's sake, we'll see if that is actually the case. Just to prove it to you, the viewer. So K could bat in the sixth position. Now remember, we're looking to see this should not work. This should be our correct answer. So K will be constrained in the sixth position. And what do we have left? We know that D has to come in the fourth or seventh position. So let's try fourth. We know that E has to come sometime in here. We know that H can't be beside D, so let's put it over here. And we have M over here. Now let's see if this breaks any. I already see that breaks condition 1. So I have to try something different. So I know that D can't be in the fourth or seventh because they will break condition. This isn't condition 1, this is condition 2. And it can't be in the third or the eighth because of condition 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And it can't be in position 1, 2, or 9 because those are taken by other constraint objects. So E is a correct answer. Just to recap, having K in the sixth position would either force DH together in position 3 or 4, or it would force D, G, K together in 4, 5, 6. E is the correct answer. Last question. Please take a moment to read through Constraint Object question 5. Press pause, and when you are ready to continue, press play. We will continue. Let's read through the following question together. Which of the following could be the batting order from first to last? So whenever you have an order question, the best strategy is to just go through the conditions. Ordering questions are always trying to determine if you are able to follow the conditions and determine any errors. So let's go through it step by step. A is F, J, H, M, D, E, G, K, L. So F is in first position, J is in second position. So that one's good. D, G, and K are separated, so that one's good. E, H, and M are separated, so we're good there. D and H are separated, so we're good there. D is not in the third or eighth position. How about this one? Uh-oh, look at this one. E comes before K, so it breaks condition 6. So let's get rid of this one. Okay, let's try B. So again, condition 1 is followed because F and J are in first and second position. We've got D, G, and K. They're separated. E, H, and M, well, that says meh. So we know that E, H, and M are together. So that breaks this condition right here, or condition 3. So we can get rid of B. Let's take a look at C. Again, it follows the first condition. Let's clear this off to avoid confusion. F is in first, J is in second. D, G, and K are separated. Uh-oh, I already see it. Look at D and H. That breaks condition 4. So we can eliminate C. Let's take a look at D. Clear off the conditions again. So F is in first position, J is in second position, D, G, and K are separated. E, we skipped D, but we'll come back to that one. D, G, and K are separated. E, H, and M are separated. D and H are separated. D is not in the third or eighth position. K comes before E, and L equals 9. It looks like E is the correct answer. But just for argument's sake, let's look at D quickly because we skipped over that one. So F and J are in the first and second positions. G, D, and K are separated. E, H, and M are separated. D and H are separated, but I already see what's wrong here. It breaks this condition right here. D is in the eighth position. So it breaks condition 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So E is the credited response. So just to recap, E is the only one that satisfies all the conditions. E is the correct response. Once again, thank you for watching. Don't forget to like us on YouTube. And on behalf of Education 180, happy LSAT Reading.